Hello, everyone. It's that time, and welcome to another Gaming Espresso. Hi, I'm Uncle Gamer, and we're going to talk about another topic in the PC gaming world. And once again, the list of topics that I've put together gets derailed because something in the news caught my eye, sparked my interest, and made me want to grab a soapbox. A soapbox that any of you that know me, I've been on before. And this soapbox has to do with something called G2A. All right, so for those of you that don't know, and if you're in the gaming world and you don't know, G2A is what is referred to as a gray market computer game sales site. Now, let me explain to you what that means, and then we're going to get into what I think of G2A. Is it good for gamers or is it bad for gamers? So, a gray market computer game sales site is this: people manage to pick up games on the cheap. People have managed to through Humble Bundle, or maybe through some special clearance sale, or they bought a video card or a motherboard that's got a game code with it, but they don't want the game. And they've got all these different ways they've managed to get games very inexpensively. What they do is they go to G2A and then they resell the game codes because they're not going to use the game codes. They resell the codes. G2A then sells you the codes. You get them at a reduced rate. Instead of $60, maybe you get it for $30 or $40. And you then get the game. It's that simple. It's just a resale market. It's a flea market for PC game codes. Okay, this doesn't sound real bad. The reason things got hairy was because a number of smaller companies got, well, not hacked. Hacked would be a bad word. They got a stolen credit card used on them. A few hundred game codes, in some cases, a few thousand game codes got bought, sold through G2A. Well, the problem is the company didn't discover the error until it was too late. And then they had chargeback fees. And the result was the companies actually took a small, well, not that small, I guess. They took a hit and went to G2A and said, "Oh my God, you sold our codes that weren't supposed to be sold. These were illegal." G2A said, "There's not much we can do about it." And so the fight began. Now, let me give my opinion of G2A and this whole process. This whole fight began because of what happened to these small companies. Up until then, G2A was respected by gamers. Gamers on the whole liked G2A because it gave them the opportunity to buy games inexpensively. You didn't have to wait for a Steam sale. Somebody had a game code, a spare game code that was given to them or gifted to them, and they're like, "I can't use it. I don't want to use it. I can go to G2A and sell that." Now, that aspect of G2A, nobody complained about. The other aspect, as I mentioned, people have motherboards, or they have video cards they buy, and they have game codes. They go to G2A and sell it. Nobody's complaining about that except the hardware manufacturers. Because you see, the hardware manufacturers are upset about that because they have to then pay for the game code. When you go buy a game code, or when you go buy a hardware product like a video card or a motherboard, and it has a game code attached to it, the hardware manufacturer hasn't paid for that game code yet in most cases. That game code won't be paid for by the hardware manufacturer until that game code is redeemed. And because of that, this is kind of like the scheme that works with rebates. They presume a lot of these codes are never going to be redeemed, so they don't really budget for 100% of the codes to be redeemed. This is my experience over the years. No particular inside experience. This is just my outside experience over the years of doing this. And when more and more of the game codes get redeemed, see, they figure 50% of the game codes. Thanks to G2A, that number is probably 75 to 80. Well, that hurt their bottom line financially, so they're upset about this. But gamers weren't mad about this. Gamers didn't get upset about this until a few of the gaming pundits got mad because some of their buddies doing indie game development were getting hit with stolen credit cards. Now, I accept this, but the problem that we have is the story isn't being presented accurately. So this indie company, I'm not even going to get into the actual story. We're going to create one of our own so that we can understand the process here. Indie company A gets an order for 1,000 game codes on a credit card, and they're like, woohoo, we made some money. We made some money. And that money is immediately put into their budget. Now, remember, the credit card company may not repay them for a month to 2 months. So there's a delay there before the actual money shows up. So they go and they spend the money. Then they get hit and told, well, you're not getting this money. What do you mean we're not getting this money? You're not getting this money. That was a stolen credit card. At this point, this is where the story got a little disingenuous. The amount of money in the sales was referred to as a loss. There was no loss. They never got the money. They planned ahead. They poorly managed their company and spent money they had not received yet. Additionally, they didn't actually lose anything because this is digital codes. This is copies of the game. We've talked about this in the past. There's no actual charge in the copies of the game. So the copies of the game didn't cost them anything. What cost them was their greed in jumping the gun and assuming, remember what happens when you assume, they had money before the money actually appeared in their account. Well, then it gets worse. There are sometimes additional fees from the credit card company because they tried to charge to get the money. And that could accumulate into quite a bit of money eventually. So they're mad at G2A because G2A sold the codes. Well, G2A had no way of knowing if the codes are stolen or not, just as eBay has no way of knowing if the products it sells are stolen or not. G2A did remove codes that were still there that they had reported stolen. They did take the appropriate steps there. But they haven't, in the end, really taken steps to try to quash stolen codes. But is it their place to? Is it the place of a pawn shop to look at jewelry that comes in and go, this may be stolen, so we're not going to allow it to be sold for 120 days until we can check with every jewelry store? That's kind of a silly solution. So how do you solve this? How do you deal with this problem? Well, the way to deal with this problem, in my opinion, has always been not just with G2A, but with the actual game developers and with the credit card companies. First, with the credit card companies, if there's any kind of chargeback, if you're charging anyone money that is victim of a stolen credit card, you're asshats. It's time for a new credit card. All right? It's time for something to be changed. The law needs to be changed. It should not be possible for a credit card company to go to a company that had money stole from them because of sales and say, we're going to charge you back for this. That shouldn't be possible. It shouldn't be allowed. And if it is allowed, that there needs to be legal action that's affordable and taken. And that's what the credit card company for the fraud. Second, with the credit card company for the fraud, should be the fact of, why didn't they notice the fraud? I've had purchases, small purchases, contact me because they were outside of my normal purchase cycles and locations to verify it was actually me doing the purchase. Evidently, these were pretty large purchases, and the credit card company didn't notice. Something's flawed there in this story. Third, as a game developer, especially an indie game developer, somebody just bought 100 games from you on a single credit card, and you weren't suspicious? You didn't stop the transaction and say, because of the nature of this transaction, we need to verify information. Maybe they didn't purchase 100 at a time. Maybe they purchased 2 at a time. That's great. The first 2, awesome sale. The second 2, maybe cool sale for their buddies. The third sale, now you should start to get suspicious. The fourth sale, oh my God. The fifth sale, now you're an idiot if you haven't caused something to stop and look at it. This doesn't all lay at G2A's feet. And let's go one final step further. What about the people that committed the crime? What's being done to them? Now, G2A, you need to give every bit of data you have on the reseller of a proven stolen code. Every bit of data. You shouldn't even wait for court information. If there is proof that this is stolen, you should be providing that information so that the company involved, the credit card company, and the authorities locally to the individual can deal with the criminal activity. Anything less, you justify people like Total Biscuit and others that are saying that you're a criminal organization. You justify that. Now, outside of that, there's another complaint with G2A right now. And the complaint is they offer their own insurance policy to guarantee you that if something's wrong with this code, you're not completely out. And usually it's a couple of bucks per game. The argument that is being made against that is, this proves they know these codes are stolen. Well, no, this proves human nature in a flea market, and they know there are assholes. Okay, eBay offers similar offerings. PayPal offers similar offerings. Now, in fairness, neither one of those charge specifically for each one. And G2A is charging specifically for each one. But you know what? You don't have to take it. You can roll the dice and take a shot. Is G2A being criminal, or are they being scummy? Are they being bad to consumers? I think a little bit of both begins to apply here. They're good to consumers because they give us a place to go to buy the game codes we would like at potentially lower prices. They are going to force game developers. The way to beat G2A, by the way, is simple, game developers. Lower the damn price. All right, that's the problem gamers have today. The problem gamers have today is the pricing is too high. We understood $60, $70 for a new release when you had to do box art, you had to pay for boxes, you had to pay for physical samples, and you had to pay for shipping across the country, and you had limited supplies because of physical availability, and we understood it then. We're in the digital age now, where you basically make one copy of the game, you make a bunch of key codes, by the way, that cost you nothing to produce, and then you hand it out to the retailers, the game codes, and you say sell. A lot of the back-end cost of game development has disappeared. Well, what about the front-end cost? Because we spend more on games. Really? Then why do they suck more? I said this last week. Why do games suck more, but you're spending more money? You want us to feel sorry for you? Give us something to feel sorry for you about. Now, what about the indie developers? Well, the indie developers, again, I got some appreciation for them. They sell at reasonable price points. They try to produce a decent, fun little game at a reasonable cost, and they don't have the resources to do the bigger game. I appreciate that. But you don't have the resources or the forethought in your bookkeeping to run your company in an efficient manner that makes sure that a stolen credit card purchase isn't a massive hit to you. You don't have the ability to handle that, especially when the suspicious behavior is so obviously suspicious. You could have taken control of it before it ever became an issue. Don't lay all the blame at G2A's feet for this. This isn't all G2A's fault. Is G2A a facilitator? Well, of course it's not. Facilitator. That's like saying pawn shops are evil, because pawn shops allow people to sell stolen goods. eBay is evil because eBay allows people to sell stolen goods. They have back protection. I understand that. G2A should have some back protection. But G2A in and of itself isn't evil. Should G2A offer its protection on purchases for free? Got some problem with that. And here's why I say I got some problem with that. G2A isn't dealing with companies. G2A is dealing with individuals. And before you say it's 100% for free, because G2A makes money on the sales, G2A makes money on the insurance, G2A makes money. G2A's job is to make money. It is their position to make money. Is their behavior 100% above board? Probably not. I don't know too many companies that are. And that includes major developers, Steam, Origin. I don't think all their dealings are above board. Boy, I got a Steam one for you. Um, all of them operate on the fringe because they're worried about how much money they can make. They're not worried about the consumer at the end of the day. I don't think G2A deserves the bashing it's getting. I don't think they deserve it because they're being made to be a criminal organization that isn't true. Criminals can use their system to sell games. Yes, they can. Criminals can also use eBay to sell games, pawn shops to sell games, Reddit to sell games. Should every place that a criminal can sell a video game somehow be held responsible to the developer for the sale of that video game? If some guy comes into Reddit and says to a Reddit community, hey, I've got these 10 codes for this game, anybody that wants them, $10 a piece, and you can have them. Is that Reddit's responsibility to police that? Is it our responsibility as consumers to police that? If we see a deal that's too good to be true, we should be skeptical for sure. But are you saying that we should say no immediately? Especially if we get a legitimate game code, a game code that works. Why should we say no? Developers have been ripping us off for years. They sell us video games at ridiculously high prices that are half finished. They make us pay for games up front that aren't finished, then wait 3 months to be able to get the game. Are they really any better than the business practices people are complaining about with G2A? At the end of the day, if you choose to use G2A or not choose to use G2A is up to you. If you choose to support them or not support them is up to you. But I think the hyperbole that has been attached to this, the drama that has been created, that has been artificially inflated by gaming pundits and the companies, is just disgusting. They say G2A is bad for the gaming community. So's spreading BS. If you don't like G2A, state the reasons you don't like G2A and move on. If you do like G2A, state the reasons you like G2A and move on. But to lay at the feet all the ills that exist in the gaming community from a few illegal transactions and not lay at the feet the credit card companies, the greedy developers who took a silly purchase order and accepted it on face value, the greedy developers who spent money that hadn't even shown up in their coffers yet, or the criminals themselves who actually performed the act, to instead make G2A the evil boogeyman of this. I'm sorry, I like you, Total Biscuit. I like you, many other of the pundits. I'm picking on Total because, dude, I love you, man. I love the material you do. I expected better of you with this. I expected a more balanced look. What you did was almost an infomercial for game developers. I'm really sad to see this take place because game developers are, as a whole, as harmful to the community as anything G2A has done. And I see this, and it's just sad to see. If you like purchasing with G2A, purchase from them. I say more power to you. If you don't. More power to you. But let's spend less time bashing down a reseller who is just like, in the end of the day, any other reseller. Come on, they're there to make money. Let's spend less time bashing them and more time trying to fix the things that actually need to be fixed to the PC gaming community, like the stuff we talked about last week with developers not giving a crap and putting out shitty products for full price. Let's worry about fixing that crap. Let's fix the bigotry in the community, especially in the PC gaming community, toward other gaming solutions. Let's fix that crap. Let's fix the things that matter to PC gamers at the end of the day, rather than a system that allows gamers the options to sell off game codes they don't want and companies being upset because it digs in their profits. As for criminal resale is always bad. it should be bad. G2A, you've got just a few simple things you do need to do to fix your shit on that end, and you're fine. Credit card companies need to fix the shit on their end, and developers, seriously, dude, stop getting a grin on your face and a boner because you just saw 1,000 game code purchased from an individual. Instead, get really suspicious, hold the transaction, and do some background checking before you allow that purchase to go through. Fool you once, shame on you. Shame on the person who did it. Fool you twice, you're a moron. So on that note, go out, play some video games, and have some fun. And until I see you next time, game on.